Kia ora, hello, we are
A Couple of Kiwis.
Welcome to our new video. Today we are going to talk about a big milestone in our lives. We've been living in Singapore for 2 years now, and before we moved to Singapore we sort of had some assumptions about what the country would be like, and today we're going to cover 5 of those assumptions and whether they turned out to be true or not. So, shall we get into it?
Let's get into it.
Assumption number
1. Now, assumption number 1 was that we assumed Singapore was a really safe country. And we were correct.
Singapore is super safe. I mean, I've never once felt scared, worried, nervous about anything I've done in Singapore. At all hours of the night, we've been out running, catching public transport, walking, and we've never felt unsafe, once.
I think as a female, this one was particularly important to me. I know back in other countries that I visited, I never really felt safe after the hours of 6 o'clock walking to your street by yourselves or wearing your headphones so you can't hear your surroundings. But here in Singapore, I don't second guess it, and that's because there's a lot of trust in the community and the locals, but also the systems that they have in place with their high intense security systems and cameras. But everyone is just a responsible citizen, right? And they respect the rules and they respect the country's laws, so we've had no reason to feel unsafe as yet.
Well, one of the things that got me when we first moved was I saw kids out and about by themselves on their bikes, scooters, catching public transport by themselves. And at first I couldn't believe it. And we came from New Zealand, which is a safe country in itself, but you would never do that in New Zealand.
Also, I think when it comes to house security, we are quite lucky as expats. Most live in condominium buildings, which are secured by security staff. And you're really well looked after within the complex. So we have 24-hour security at our complex non-stop, and it's great to make friends with them as well. They look out to you and get your packages when they're delivered, so it's always good for your online shopping.
So Singapore, you are super safe, and that was an assumption that was true.
It's still definitely true, and I think it will always be true.
Assumption number 2 was that Singapore is an amazing hub for travel, and that turned out to be partially true.
Mostly true.
Mostly true. If it wasn't for COVID, that would have been a big tick. If you didn't know, Changi Airport, Singapore's airport, is the best airport in the world, and it's been voted that multiple times. It's an absolute hub for travel. There's flights everywhere. And even during these COVID times, it's super busy.
We actually had a friend who recently timed herself. This was early on. She timed herself the moment the plane landed to when she got out the gates, and it was 14 minutes total. So if you have not come to Changi Airport yet, definitely make it a stop on your travels in the future. But we also have been able to visit it just because
it's a tourist destination.
It's a tourist destination.
I mean, you've got the Jewel, you've got shopping malls, there's heaps to do there. So it's definitely worth a visit even if you're not going anywhere. What we found was in the first 6 months where we moved to Singapore, we absolutely made the most of the travel hub. We went to Taiwan, we went to Europe, we went to Bali, we went to Thailand. Am I missing any?
Bintan.
It was just an amazing first 6 months, and before COVID we thought, this is going to be an epic experience. But despite COVID hitting, we have still made the most of the travel experiences.
Yeah, so we have still been able to travel. Currently, Singapore have provided some more options during these COVID times that we were able to experience. We're very lucky to be able to experience. We actually went on the cruise to nowhere, if you have not seen our vlog.
Link above,
which was an overseas experience where we actually went into international waters. So I highly recommend that. But also there's little day trips that technically you're going over water. We've been to Pulau Ubin, which is a little island off the coast of Singapore. There's also Sentosa Island, there's Lazarus and St. John's, which are really fun local spots, which gives you a little bit of a getaway from the mainland.
Totally. So, assumption number 2, that Singapore is a hub for travel. partially true, but I'm sure in maybe the next 6 months it's going to be a big tick once again. Assumption number 3 was around Singapore being super expensive to live, which we found to be partially true, and here's why.
When we decided to come to Singapore, I think part of our apprehension was around it being quite expensive. We saw the city as a hub of designer brands, high-end shopping, fine dining, and it is that, but it doesn't have to be that. So if you are looking for more that lavish lifestyle, there are places where you can go in Singapore. Marina Bay Sands area, Orchard Road is the hub for designer brand shopping. There's beautiful areas around Singapore that you could stroll, Sentosa Cove. They're all amazing, but if you want to live a lifestyle that is not expensive, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, the restaurants in Singapore too are quite expensive, but there's an alternative to that, and that's the hawker centre. And you won't have to walk far to find a hawker centre. They're everywhere, and this is where you get your real authentic Singaporean experience food-wise. I mean, you've got hundreds of stalls, and they all sell different types of food, but the meals there don't cost much more than $5 or $6. So you can get a meal and a drink for under $10, and that's super cheap compared to restaurants. Public transport's another one that's super cheap. I mean, the average MRT train journey costs around $1.20 to $1.95. Taxis are super cheap, so it's easy to get around. Buses, and
I don't miss having a car.
You don't need a car.
The amount we spent on gas in New Zealand
and
was
car
incredible,
maintenance in
and
general.
Car maintenance, but being able to have a transport system that's so efficient and affordable, it really makes a difference to your life.
So, in general, Singapore, yes, it can be expensive, but if you're savvy and you're wise and you get amongst the Singaporean culture of hawker centres and public transport, it can actually be really cheap. So, Singapore being a super expensive country to live, partially true. Assumption number 4 was around Singapore being a tiny little country and not having a lot to do, which we found to be totally and utterly
not true.
Singapore may be small. In fact, for you Kiwis out there, it's about the same size as Lake Taupo, which is not big at all. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for an absolute opportunity to be entertained. Singapore has so much to do, and in the last year, that is what our entire channel has been about. We have seeked out all of the opportunities that Singapore has to offer and made the most of them. And to be honest, we've still got plenty to go. Singapore has so much to do. Some of the highlights for us.
Definitely Singapore Zoo. Loved it. You've got the bird park. I'm going to include the bird park, river safari, night safari.
Well, it's one of the best zoos in the world. I think it's second behind San Diego. So totally.
So zoo's definitely one of them for me. An activity that I personally love doing is just biking around Marina Bay. And you can hire bikes down there as well. Sentosa has endless opportunities. I think the luge was one of the ones that we did on Sentosa, which was extremely fun. I would have to say the water park, Wild Wild Wet Water Park, is definitely up there.
Super cheap too.
Super
I think it's
cheap.
About $15 entry.
And Universal Studios as well, which would be my top 5 activities.
Okay. I'd go along with most of those. I think I'd chuck Gardens by the Bay in there. The domes at Gardens by the Bay are incredible. I think, in conclusion, there is a ton of things to do, and if you want evidence of that, head over to our channel and check out all the stuff we've done in the last year in Singapore. There's just so much, and we're still ticking things off. So if you're living in Singapore right now and you say the country is boring, shame on you, because it is not. It is cool. Amazing.
We love it. We love you, Singapore.
The 5th and final assumption about Singapore was that it's just one big massive city and that there's no parks or green space. And that is totally and utterly not true. Okay? Singapore has so many parks, places to explore for such a small place. It is punching well above its weight for its green areas.
So much greenery, and I was literally blown away when I first got here. We were quite apprehensive growing up in New Zealand. We're so lucky to have open spaces and greenery and trees, And we were a little bit nervous of how we were going to adapt to that lifestyle when moving here, but we were not disappointed. We live close to an amazing park connector, a river. There's multiple walks. The Botanical Gardens is beautiful. Gardens by the Bay. We've got the wetlands, Bukit Timah, McRitchie, where you see all these wildlife. I think it's just endless opportunities in Singapore to access greenery. I don't think you could go 100 metres without seeing a planted tree. So we were pleasantly surprised. And I think for me, my idea was that it contributes to the air quality as well. So I feel like having all these trees around has made it really enjoyable and nice fresh air as well. Yeah. If you have any other nature walks or parks that are hidden and unheard
Very
of,
keen to
definitely give us a message or write below, because we're definitely keen to explore some more. There you have it. There's our 5 assumptions. I'm sure there are many more, but we are super grateful to have been living in Singapore, and then we're so excited to continue living in Singapore.
That'll do us for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you want to find out more about Singapore and our journey here, make sure you click the subscribe button. And until then, we'll see you next time on A Couple of Kiwis. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for watching.